I'm excited that you're here. We get to do this here in your hometown of Portland.
I'm so surreal.
Like,
I'm so excited.
I think it's dope. Like, you're right. I'm glad we did this here. We didn't do it in LA. We didn't do it in New York.
I mean, I would have felt like really cool, like being like, oh, I have to go to New York for a podcast. But I'm like staying at my childhood home.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just like this city, like, I feel like I moved to LA when I was 18. Mm-hmm. So like I don't know, like I grew up in Portland. I was like a baby child in Portland. And then I was like a young adult baby in LA. So it was like LA raised, like really shaped my adulthood. LA. But like my baby Maggie, my child, was like fully formed here. Yeah. And so this is like a huge part of my kind of
existence. Yeah. What's it feel like being back right now?
Hot. Great. It feels really great. I always have so much fun coming back to Portland, and I have so much fun looking at it through the lens of someone who's been in Los Angeles for the last 16 years. Mm-hmm. Because I see opportunity where I didn't see opportunity before.
Yeah, you didn't have perspective being someone that lived here for 18 years.
I didn't have perspective, but I also, I didn't have perspective, and I didn't have the same like knowledge or power or capital or capabilities to like do to do something.
Things that were here.
Yeah, right. And I didn't have as many examples. It took me leaving Portland to see those examples. And that's why I think that this is so powerful. Yeah. And that's why, like, I'm like, yeah, I'll be there. You know what I mean? But I think that it's so powerful for these, like, to share our stories.
Yeah, I mean, otherwise, you know, you hit on the point, right? Mm-hmm. It's a lot of times we don't get to see what we naturally lean to when we're younger as creatives. Mm-hmm. And so what could happen if it's not nurtured is you can go this whole period trying to be something else. Yeah. When your initial thing that you were gravitating towards is what you were supposed to be the whole time, right. But you never saw anyone. Right. You never even saw a Maggie or knew a Maggie in your neighborhood.
Didn't know any Maggies. Or just, and the constant unlearning of what we think we're supposed to be, and you know.
I had a conversation about that yesterday, about the unlearning. That's a part we don't talk a lot about, is because you built up so many of these things of what you thought, but then when you actually move somewhere and you see these other creatives that they're like, oh no, why aren't you just wearing this or doing this or doing whatever you want? And you're like, I thought I had to do this to be successful.
I did not know that like a jewelry designer was like a job. I mean, obviously it was. Yeah. But I didn't know it was one that I could do when I was 20 years old.
Of course not.
Until I didn't.
So tell me about then, what were you surrounded by, right? Like I know your mom was a social worker, and I know your dad was a boiler maker, welding and things like that. Yeah. So what did you observe growing up?
So my mom was a social worker my whole life. Like she was like advocate, angel, champion for like so many voices, so many groups. And so like I watched that, and I was always very aware of like the help that the world needs, right? And then my dad was a boilermaker. He worked at the shipyards. And so he would like go to work at like 4:30 in the morning and like 12-hour days, and he would like weld on weld on ships. Wow. And he had gotten into welding. He was from Long Island, New York. He moved out to Portland in the 80s. He got into welding because he wanted to make metal sculpture. Wow. And then he got a job with the shipyards, union, and he just kind of fell into. Yeah. But he was a dreamer, and he was obsessed with series Land Rovers. So like my dad was driving Land Rovers before everyone thought they were so cool. Yeah. And
like here, you can't go down the street without seeing one.
Right. And growing up, you couldn't hide. So you would be coming to pick me up from school, and you would hear the diesel like 2 blocks away, and I'd be like, gotta go. Because you'd be like, you would hear it coming up, and everyone would be like, what? And it was just like, you're just like, oh my God, this is so embarrassing. Stop looking, But he was obsessed, and he would always be in the driveway, like cutting apart parts and like making parts and like building parts. Like he would build crazy contraptions, like wild shit. But it was always like, oh, my dad's working on his truck. Like you
didn't think of it as like this creative side. I didn't think of it as like, oh, my dad is like an artist engineer. Right. Like he's, I was just like, oh, God, we get it, the truck. Like, we get it, the Land Rover. Yeah.
So yeah, I grew up lots of off-roading, and And
Did you ever like participate in any of that stuff?
Off-roading?
No,
or welding?
Just his welding and like when he's in those projects?
Well, it was kind of like get out of my way. You know, like I got some metal in my eye when I was a kid.
Oh, gosh.
So like it's in my blood, really? Like no, but like I would watch and I would well, I'll share a photo with you. That's not true. I will share a photo with you of me as like a 1 or 2 year old with like he's working and I'm like I have a thing and it's a really good photo. Oh, so yes, I did. I was like in the mix. Yeah. I was always like dirty and like had bare feet and like splinters
doing
and
something.
like always.
So were you just an outside kid or
I
like
was an outside
and you weren't like no TV,
no
stuff like that?
No, we didn't have any channels. We had like the normal channels and it would be like Saturday morning and be like golf.
Just
I had no channels. The only thing I had to look forward to was TGIF on Friday nights at 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
So I didn't watch a lot of TV. I don't watch a lot of TV now. I didn't grow up going to a lot of movies. Like I don't watch movies now. People think I'm crazy.
How do you spend your time? What would you just want to
like make stuff.
Make stuff. Huh.
I just grew up in it. Like there's like a point when you're an adult, you're like, ding ding ding. Like I've been doing this my whole life, and I didn't. You don't realize until you do. But I know I didn't ever, and if I was watching TV, I was always coloring or drawing or beading.
It was just background noise.
It was just background noise, and it still is. Like I'll watch TV to like turn my brain off or to like feel good. Yeah. But not.
You're not actually like paying attention to what's happening.
I don't know who anybody is. Like, oh, this guy, this so. And I was like, I've never seen Lord of the Rings. I don't know what you're talking about. I've never seen.
So I can't ask you about the new Game of Thrones prequel.
Absolutely not. Gosh. I will not talk to you about that. Harry Potter, Titanic, The Notebook, Matrix, don't know.
But you know the titles.
Well, yeah, to be a kid and like to be like a part of pop culture, you have to like know, kind of, but I just like don't care.
It was probably like a defense mechanism. You knew of these things, but you didn't need to like, you didn't actually care to actually know
And I think
about
as an adult, I've like doubled down, where I'm like, oh no, I've definitely never seen that. I never will watch that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's because you probably are like way more comfortable in who you are today.
Yeah. Like, it doesn't mean that I love all parts of myself all the time. You know what I mean? But I'm pretty like, that's
me.
That's me.
So you're making all this stuff. What were you making as a kid? Like, what were some of the stuff you were making?
Everything. Everything. Like, candles, paper.
Candles? How do you learn how to make candles?
You buy wax, you melt it, or you get the beeswax things and you roll them. There's lots of ways. I mean, everything. Yeah. Beading, looms. I got a sewing machine for my 10th birthday. I would make pants for myself before I would go to 4th grade.
How did you get like the fit right?
You just keep going. What else would I make? Anything like woodworking related. Just like anything.
Who are you doing this with?
Well, I'm an only child. I spend a lot of time by myself. But my parents or like me.
Yeah. They're like, Maggie, go make some pants.
Yeah, like, it would be before school. I'd be like, I don't have anything to wear.
And so you're just like, Maggie's just.
Yeah, no, exactly. No, like psycho 10-year-old in my room. Yeah, like weird.
But also really cool. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I would be very intrigued to meet a 10-year-old that's literally sewing their own clothes.
Yeah, it is kind of that the unlearning, because when I think back to how weird and cool that is, it's like, how much did I learn when I was a teenager to be like, that's not cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like, yeah, so I was just really creatively and my mom went to college to be an art teacher. Okay. And she ended up being a social worker.
So basically you're in a house full of creatives that don't identify as creatives because of society, essentially.
Yeah, or just like, the way that I think about it is like, it's like, it was just kind of a way of life. It was just what you did. It wasn't like,
the Simpkins way.
I'm an artist. Like, it wasn't, you didn't like talk about being an artist. You just
did it.
You just made your Halloween costume every year because that's what you did. Or you made your your piñata out of paper mache every year and then you painted it because that's what you did. Or you made clay masks to hang on the wall because that's just what you did. Like it wasn't.
Is that like what y'all did, or is that a Portland thing? Like, did you discover that was like normal with everyone else that you would?
Well, I went to. I mean, my parents were like retired hippies. So like I think Portland in the 90s was like a special place because there was like a lot of Burrs East and kale and like armpit hair. Like that's not anything new. If you grew up in Portland in the 90s. Like, oh, you guys are just discovering lesbians? Like, duh.
In here.
We've been on that. Like, what? Old news. Burrs East, old news. Bragg's amino acid, old news. But so I think that like, yeah, I was in like more alternative schools. And so maybe like friends' parents did cool stuff like that too. So it wasn't like I was the only alien on the block. But when I got to high school, I was really aware that like that's not how a lot of the kids around me grew up.
It was different.
And when I moved to Los Angeles, I was really aware of it. That was not, you know.
Well, take me back to high school, right? Because there's a story that came up in research that you made this paper, this necklace out of pins or something.
That was still when I was like in elementary school.
This was in elementary school. And this was at a community pool?
This was at Matt Dishman.
Oh my gosh.
I was taking swim lessons.
You were taking swim lessons.
Yeah.
And this girl called your necklace ghetto.
Yes.
Had you heard the word ghetto before?
No one had. Okay. This might surprise you, but I don't get called ghetto a lot. That might surprise you. No one had ever called me ghetto before, but it was another black girl, first of all.
Okay.
And I remember, well, it was like probably the beginning of like me learning that like your creativity or your being different is not going to be understood by other people, and it's going to make people uncomfortable. And it's like you can either like hide that or you can like embrace it.
Yeah.
And it's like when you're a kid, like making stuff isn't cool. Like new sneakers are cool.
Yeah.
Like the newest cell phone is cool.
That's cool.
Designer stuff is cool.
Very cool. People's
parents having a new car or a pool is cool. Like that's like the kid, you know, it's like, ew, you made that necklace out of paper clips? That's ghetto. And then I remember seeing a few years ago, Virgil had done like a collection with like, was it LV? And they're like, paper clips with diamonds! And I was like, I did that shit when I was 8 and I got made fun of.
Yeah.
But go Virgil. Like, I don't know.
It's always so interesting when stuff that I find that black people have done just normally, day-to-day life. Gets discovered and then amplified, and then it's like the coolest thing.
Depends on who, well, it depends on who discovers it.
Right, right. It fascinates me.
Because no shade, but I don't think paper clips now as a 34-year-old, I don't think that's innovative. I thought it was innovative when I was 8 in the swimming pool.
Yeah.
But like, it's cool, but like, okay.
Yeah. And no, it's,
you know what I mean? And I respect all of it. I just think that that is like a pet peeve of mine as someone who is a designer and who pays attention to every single detail. And whether you like my stuff or whether you don't like my stuff doesn't matter. It's subjective. Right. I don't even like all of the stuff that I make, right? But it's
typical artist.
Yeah, but it's for a purpose, you know? But at least everything is intentional. And so I think that like, I get mad when I see lazy design. When I'm like, you don't get to just call a paperclip jewelry because you like want to be, you know?
Yeah.
But but at the same time, my style can be really simple.
Yeah.
So like I also understand why people like it.
But simplicity is also intentional.
Sure.
Like, you know, I find that as I get older, for example, I wear a uniform. I wear the same thing every day, 7 of 7. Yeah. And I don't need new or different things to validate it or to make me feel better. It's just like as you get older, I think you start to develop these, you just get a little bit more okay with you, I think.
I think that I used to love expressing myself through my clothing and through the way that I would dress and through making clothes and through, like, I used to love that. my first job was at Buffalo Exchange when I was 16, and I had some of the flyest vintage to this day. I can be like, okay, 16-year-old Maggie.
Yeah,
like,
you got it.
But as I've gotten, like, now, I express myself through my creativity on a daily basis. That, like, yeah, when I want to show up in the world, I don't want to think about what I'm putting on. And I also don't want, it's like, look at my work.
Yeah,
I don't need
my identity to be my clothing.
No.
I need it to be my art.
I don't need my identity to be my clothing. And if I'm wearing a new design, and I also think that, like, I went through so many years as, like, a broke artist and as a broke young person that I was like, I didn't have any of that. So it couldn't define me. And so it was like, now that I'm, like, making money, I still don't want it. I don't want.
It's funny how that happens.
I don't want a new Gucci handbag. I don't care. Yeah. Like, genuinely.
It just
doesn't
move you anyway.
No. And the sneaker thing is a funny thing. Like, I was never into sneakers because I could never afford sneakers. Yeah. Ever. And it was, I put on a pair of sneakers a couple years ago, and someone's like, wow, cool. Like, I'm, like, walking down the street with these sneakers on. Oh my God. And I'm like, that's all I had to do to be cool was put on a pair of sneakers?
Yeah.
Like, that's cheating. That's like, oh, I have money, so therefore I'm cool because you like my shoes. I'm like, that's not how, like, this is fun, and it's fun that I can be playful.
I can do it, be a part of it, but it's not.
But it's like.
It's a weird thing.
I don't idolize people because of the way that they dress or because they're wearing the newest cool. Like, I don't subscribe to that. And so I kind of walk that line within myself of like, yeah, this is fun. Doesn't define me.
Doesn't define you.
No.
Tell me about, you clearly are, like, very in tune with creating, and that is your nature. As you were getting older, your later half of high school, and you're having these conversations about where you're going to go, what you're going to do with your life. And it's funny, we always phrase it that way. It's like, what? Who knows what they're going to do with their life at 18? I
still don't know what I'm going to do with my life.
Right. Did you think you would go on to become, like, a working creative? Like, what did you...
No. I mean, I didn't know. But, like, I was pretty... By the time I was a teenager, I was, like, I worked when I always worked. And I, like, as soon as I could get a job, I got a job, you know, whatever. Yeah. And so I was always pretty serious in that regard. Like, I was always kind of like, okay, but I have to go to work, or okay, but. And so I was definitely, like, thinking about, I was, like future-minded, I guess. And so, and when I looked around Portland, I felt really, like, it was just so small, and I just felt so stifled, kind of, like, all right, what's next? Like, I know everybody.
You know everything.
I know everybody, like, what's next? And so, but I, you know, and I always knew that I was going to go to college because that's what I was supposed to do. But I didn't ever think that, like, going to an art school was, like,
the thing that you should do.
I didn't think it was responsible.
Why?
I don't know, because, like, artists don't make money. I mean, I didn't think it was like, well, what do you do with an art degree? Yeah. And I was, like, so busy trying to, like, figure out how I was going to buy myself a car at 17. You know what I mean? Like, I was just, like, so it wasn't, like, that wasn't
going through your head.
I didn't know anyone who was making a living off of being an artist. Yeah. And so all of the stuff that I did was just stuff that I did. It was just, instead of watching TV,
it was just hobby to you. That was just something on the side.
You watch a movie and I'm making a candle. I don't know.
So then what did you end up doing for school?
So I just knew that I wanted to get out of Portland. Okay. I wanted to be in a bigger city, and I wanted to be in Los Angeles.
Why Los Angeles?
I don't know, because I was 17. Well, because it was close enough, because it was sunny, because it was big, because Hollywood and Los Angeles were alluring. It's like all the, you know, that's where everyone in the tabloids, like, they were doing cool stuff. Yeah. I think when you're in, like, a small,
you're looking to see what else is out there.
Small town, you're like, oh.
This is the big city. LA is the big city.
You know? Yeah. And so I was just like, I want to go be in palm trees and, like, and so I did not get into USC. Let the record state.
Yeah. You didn't go to USC.
I did not go there. I did not get in. And so then I was like, okay, well, UCLA seems too big. Where else can I go? What's this place called Loyola Marymount? I guess I'll just apply there.
And so what type of school is this? Sounds like there's a story.
Well, it sure was in Portland, Oregon. Yeah. And it sure was not any alternative school that I have ever gone to. It's like a private Jesuit school. Okay. So it really is just like the opposite of everything that I've ever experienced.
Complete opposite of what you knew.
Yeah, it was just like a private Jesuit school.
Yeah.
So.
What did that, like, why was that so difficult for you?
There was just all these rules that didn't make sense.
Like what?
I don't know. Like I couldn't be a freshman and take some Black Studies course that was for juniors because I couldn't do it. Because some old white man told me I couldn't possibly understand what was going on in the class.
Interesting.
Yeah. So like that was the rule because I was, really just like rules that didn't make sense.
And I imagine you're a kid at that time that probably asked a lot of questions.
I've always asked a lot of questions.
Were you met with resistance there for that behavior?
My mom was, bless her heart, really good but why? And she's like, well, blah, blah, blah. And I'd be like, but why? And like always asking. And it was never like, because I said so, shut the f up. Yeah. She was always really patient. Well, and so like I always have thought outside the box. I've always been a creative thinker. I've always challenged stuff that didn't make sense. Even if that was authority. And not in like a disrespectful way, but just like, why is that the rule?
Why is that the way?
Yeah, that doesn't make sense, whatever. So anyways, I was at Loyola Marymount. It was not a good fit.
I
was there for a year.
You stayed for a year?
I was there for a year, and I was like, this isn't fun. It's like, I'm taking out student loan. Like, it was just like I was just like, I can't.
Wow.
It was like, I was like, no.
And were you done with college altogether?
No, I went to Santa Monica College, like, on and off, like, a little bit after that. Yeah. And that was much, like, better. It was just, like, people from all over the world. Yeah. And, like, it's like normal people. Yeah. But Loyola Marymount was also tough because I would, like, be walking to math class at, like, 8 a.m. and, like, I'm, like, still waking up. And then you have, like, this 18-year-old in a Range Rover that almost, like, runs you over on campus. And you're just like... this cannot be real life. Like, where am I?
Where am I? Yeah. So you clearly you don't like it. You leave.
I leave.
You go take some classes here and there.
I was working full time at Nordstrom, like working full time while I was also in school, trying to like pay rent and do the thing. And
were your parents helping you?
In emergencies, I would be like, hey, Mom, I can't.
Really need some cash.
Yeah, but not consistently and not in a way that ever felt okay. You know what I mean? Like, I have never felt comfortable taking money from my parents. That has never felt like I worked when I was in high school. Yeah. 15, 16, 17, 18. Like, I've had a job since I was 15. So, like, growing up, it was like we didn't have a lot of money. Yeah. And so, like, if I'm asking my parents for money, it's like because I'm like, really, what I mean? And I'm like,
can't make it, right.
Feeling really guilty about it. And then my mom's like, by the way, you owe me. I'm like, okay. You know what I mean? I mean, I was luckily, like, in cases of emergency, I could be like, hey, Mom, I really, really, really need help paying my rent next month. But that was not, like...
That wasn't a normal...
That wasn't normal.
You weren't like every Friday you were like, Mom, give me some money.
That wasn't normal, and it wasn't, like, cool.
Yeah. Yeah. You clearly had your principles. You were like,
that was like a
don't like that, and I don't like having to ask.
Yeah, and it also just didn't feel like it was there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it was always like, well, what? I was just always aware of the sacrifices that my parents made.
They were making.
And I never took that lightly. I was always very aware of the sacrifices that my parents made. So, I always just knew that if my mom was sending me money to help me out with something, that she wasn't spending money on something else. There wasn't like a surplus of like
cash. Wasn't a money tree in the
no.
backyard.
So I just was really like that. Being self-sufficient has been very important.
So then, how was working at Nordstrom's?
I mean, I was a hustler, so it was pretty cool. But I think, you know, Nordstrom is a funny place because, like, you just, like, you're straight. You're just making commission on commission on commission. So, like, people really create careers.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if
you're
I'm, like,
selling enough,
if I'm friends with a bunch of shoppers, I'm like,
yeah.
I just come with, you know?
Huh.
And so I would, like, watch, you know, the ladies that had been there for 20 years, just, like, the guys going to the thing. But I was like, okay, this isn't my life. I like looked around. I was like 19.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I just turned 20, and I was like kind of studying business entrepreneurship at Santa Monica, but I was like making fake business plans, and I was like, this isn't how I learn.
Huh.
And I was like working full time at Nordstrom, opening and closing, and then closing and opening. Like it's like I was like, I just left here, and it's the morning.
And I'm
now
back
it's
to
the
do
night.
the same thing.
And I was like, this isn't my life. And I was in like a relationship, and I just like, and this was like the first time that I think that I really was aware of this like inner voice, like honoring it as a young adult, honoring this inner voice that like we're not taught to honor because it goes against what society tells us. It goes against what our parents want us to do. And I just blew everything up.
What do you mean?
I quit my job. I broke up with my boyfriend, and I dropped out of college.
Same year.
Like at the same time. Like maybe I just CC'd everyone on the same email. You're cool. I'm done with this chapter. Bye.
Wow.
It was like
Completely just.
and it wasn't like I didn't have a plan.
Yeah.
I just knew
That wasn't it.
it was
None of
not
it. Yeah.
it. Nothing. None of it. And I was like, this isn't, it was this, like, this isn't in alignment.
And I'm just curious, what bills did you have to pay at
Rent.
that time? Rent.
Car note.
Okay.
Car insurance.
Phone bill?
Phone bill. I might have been on a $9.99 family plan. Okay, maybe my mom paid my phone bill.
So you still got responsibilities.
Power, water. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So how much time did you have to like in between?
I like had like maybe a little bit of money, like a little bit of savings. Okay. Little. And but I was just like, this is like, no. And I remember that was kind of the first time, like really dropping out of college was like the first time that I had to like really stand in that knowing, because my mom was very disappointed. And as a kid, you know, all I want to do is like make my mom proud.
Of course.
My dad, you know what I mean? But like, and it's like, well, what are you going to do? And it's like, I don't know. And like, that's a bad answer.
Yeah.
When you're a kid, you're like, oh, you're dropping out of college. What are you going to do? Well, I don't know. You're like, that sounds dumb.
Yeah.
It sounds dumb saying it. But I knew that it was not, it was like, I'm like, this is not what I'm supposed to be doing. This is not good. This doesn't feel good. It's not just like I don't want to go to school. I mean, I didn't want to go to school, but I was good at school.
You were bored.
I was like, this isn't right. I'm not happy.
Yeah.
I'm not happy. Nothing's lighting me up. I'm not excited. I'm not inspired. It's a no. It's a no for me, dog.
It's a no for me.
So at the time, I just felt like consumed, and I needed to get really clear, and I needed to get back to this inner voice. And I was like, consuming relationship, consuming school, consuming 40-hour week, like, no. And so what I did was I had reached out to, there was this woman that used to come in and personal shop with me at Nordstrom, and I didn't really know what she did. I knew she had like an online store, but what I really knew was that every time she came in, she would like drop like $4,000 with her eyes closed. Like, what?
You were like, she didn't blink.
I'm like, what do you, I'm like, that will be $2,400. She's like, yeah, this is fine. And I'm like, oh, panties, okay.
Yeah. Like, what?
Yeah, what do you do? And so after I quit, I like wrote her an email and I was just like, hey, just wanted to let you know I'm no longer with the company. I am looking for very part-time, just really simple work.
Well,
if you ever need any help with your store, just keep me in mind. And she was like, great, come in Tuesday, you're hired.
Did you know what she did at that point?
No, I just
I
knew she had an online store.
Okay, so you show up.
So I show up. It's at this like warehouse space in Hollywood, right off of Sunset, and like right behind the right by that In-N-Out Burger on Sunset and like Orange, whatever. I show up. It's like this warehouse full of boxes. And what I didn't know was that one of the things that she did was she had like a jewelry line, like a private label kind of jewelry. Her best friend owned a showroom in the CalMart.
Yeah.
And so she was like, Fredo, why don't you like put some jewelry? And she's like, okay. And so she would like find jewelry in Santiago. Like she would just like put a bunch of shit in the showroom. Like literally just a bunch of shit in the showroom. And then like buyers would come in and place orders on the stuff. And then she would send the sample that was in the showroom to China and mass produce it.
Wow. Light bulb.
Well, not yet. My light bulb was, not yet, almost.
Not yet, okay.
So I didn't know any of that.
Yeah.
So I show up to work the first day, and my job was to quality control 2,500 necklaces that were being sent to BCBG.
So you're just doing what? Just...
Actually, yes. So you have a pile.
Yeah.
Tug test, pass, great. Tug test, fail, no.
2,500. How did you have to do those in the day or the week?
It probably took me more than a day.
Yeah.
Okay, so but I said I wanted something chill, right?
You said you wanted something chill.
So then I show up to work. My next task is to tag 2,500 necklaces. Guess what I have to do after that? Bag
them.
2,500.
No assembly line. Just you and those necklaces.
I asked for it, right? So I was like, okay, I know that I said I wanted something a little. This is a
little too slow.
Come on.
Yeah.
And I was like, and it would be one of those situations where you'd be like, whoa, wow, it's been a long day. And you'd look at the clock and you'd been there for like an hour and a half. What am I gonna do? Okay. So I looked over in the corner and there was this guy, he was like, I don't know, 20, 25, I don't know, whatever.
Yeah.
Playing with the necklace scraps, the rejects. Mm-hmm. He was like messing around with the scraps with some pliers, making stuff out of the rejects.
For this woman?
For her line.
Huh.
And I saw him and I was like, I do that. I do. Like,
you can do that. Yeah.
I could do that with my eyes closed. I could have done that for you when I was 9. Like, that's just what I do.
Yeah.
He's getting paid to do that?
Yep.
So I go home after bagging 2,500 necklaces, and I was so creatively frustrated, and I don't think that I was really creating what are you creating in college? Like, I wasn't creating, I hadn't been in that space, right? So I go home, I spend whatever $45 I have to my name at this point on
spend all your cash?
Almost.
But a majority of your cash.
Almost.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, was I taking the bus to work? I don't know. I bought some pliers, bought some chains, bought some jump rings, this was when feather earrings were just starting to hit the scene. Pre-Coachella. Okay. When you couldn't find them.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's very hard to find. You had to know someone.
They didn't exist. They were just starting. So I go home, I spend my little money on some feathers, whatever. And I'm just like...
Going at it.
Yeah. And I, cranked out like 20 pairs of earrings. Side note, me and my girls used to all get dressed and wear them to the club. That's a side note.
Was that your marketplace?
No, it was just for fun.
Just for fun.
I never would sell them, but I just have memories of that. But so I made like 20 pairs of these feather earrings, and I like very sheepishly brought them into work.
You wanted to show her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was like, I like opened up my, and she's like, oh yeah, you can design for my line.
Really?
Yeah. It was like 2 weeks in my sweatshop job. And I got promoted.
Did it feel weird to you that like that's how quickly that it happened? And like literally the week before is your first time observing someone getting paid doing something creative that you'd been doing since you were 9. And then you came back a couple of days later and now you can actually get paid to do that. Did you ever question that moment?
No. I never questioned it. I questioned like how hard, I mean, I was getting paid like $10 an hour. So
You're definitely in a sweatshop.
Yeah. And I got promoted to designer, but I was still getting paid $10 an hour, okay? I questioned, I would call my mom because I couldn't pay my bills and I was like so stressed. Yeah. I would question that, like, am I making the wrong, like, should I, thing. And she's like, well, Maggie, if it was easy, everybody would do it.
Wow. So you stayed.
I'm like, you're right. And then she would always follow it up with, well, you could always come home and work at sales.
And you would respond,
gotta go.
Yeah.
And so no, but like I just kept putting one foot in front of the other. So I was like, and she's like, okay. And then, within a couple months, I was making samples. They were in the showroom. They got picked up by BCBG. And I'm seeing my necklace that I made, the sample got sent out to China, I couldn't even shop at BCBG.
Yeah.
But that was all that my little like 20-year-old brain needed.
Yeah.
To be like, oh, I got
something.
this.
Yeah.
I can do this.
Huh.
And then within, had to be 6 months.
Yeah.
Nordstrom had bought one of my designs.
That's crazy. So literally you went from like...
That was the full circle moment where
circle.
I was like, I just quit being a sales associate at Nordstrom to Nordstrom then thinking that my design was good enough to carry in their store and put their name on it. And so I was like, all right, I got enough to keep going.
So that was one of the lessons was you got enough to keep going. Yeah. Was there anything else you took out of that kind of full circle experience?
I don't know. On the spot, trying to think of it is like, it's kind of just like also just bullshit. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was just like, it's just another lesson of the smoke and the mirrors of like.
Kind of gatekeeping and things that you don't know, and then you find out, and it's
you
like,
see the inner workings, and you're like, oh,
yeah,
that's how this is. I'm like, you just went to Santee Alley, took that out of the alley, put in the thing, and then they bought it, and then they sent it back to China to reproduce. I'm like, oh,
that's the only thing, right? Okay. We spend so much time not knowing these things, and we build them up to be these really big, difficult, scary things, and then you get behind them, and you're like, this is not at all what I thought it was.
No. And it's like, but that's the part about gatekeeping, and that's the part about sharing stories. Because as soon as, and I said this too, where it's like, I've never had a mentor, I've never
like a consistent person that your sounding board, your roadmap.
That's called me and been like, what's going on with this? You need to do that. No, never. But I have had some really amazing people that have opened doors and invited me in.
This lady was one of them.
Yeah.
So how long did you stay doing that?
I don't know, I was probably there for like a year and some change. Yeah. But I was like, I'm so poor. And so then I took another job.
Okay. Where was this one?
So this job was making a little bit more money in downtown.
Okay, downtown LA.
Downtown LA in the Diamond District.
Okay.
And it was like, it was a family, okay. It was a friend of a friend had a family-owned, like, wholesale diamond company in the downtown Diamond District. So, a whole nother world.
Yes, I gotta imagine this is your first time probably being around diamonds and gold and all of this stuff.
Oh, I didn't grow up with one. So, they were, like, looking for someone to help with a website or something. And I was like, oh, I do jewelry.
And they responded?
I'm like 22, 21. Like, yeah, I do jewelry. And they're like, okay. And I was... So my job was to do this websites. People didn't really have websites. Yeah. And
what year is this?
I mean, they had websites, but not everyone had a website. 2010? 2009. Yeah. So not everyone had, like, you know what I mean?
Well, for sure. It wasn't like I absolutely need this to run my business.
Yeah. And small businesses didn't necessarily have them, right? And so they were kind of experimenting. It was this family-owned business. The brothers had taken over from the parents. They were going to, like, revolutionize the business and, like, really. And so one of the brothers was playing around with search engine SEOs. Yeah. Downtown Diamond District. We pop up. And so I was kind of this, like, customer service website. Like, my job was to, like, get all the hot leads and pull them in the store.
Right.
You know, which was like, yeah, okay. But what got fun was, like, I always had to, like, sit in my little office, like, on the computer. But when the people came in, I got to be on the sales floor. And I got to sell the jewelry to the people. Okay. And it really quickly turned into, you know, there would be these, like, all of these different, like, settings and stuff, and they'd be like, oh, I really want this, but, and I'd be like, yeah. And so I was, like, customizing. I had all these custom ideas for, like, these things.
Because you were talking to people, you knew kind of what they wanted. They didn't have it yet. So then what did you do?
So then I would help these people make custom, like, I would take custom orders for the store. And at the same time, I was still doing my jewelry. Yeah. But I was learning about, like, casting and wax carving. And there was, like, a jeweler on site in the store.
What's casting?
Casting is, like, how we make pieces, like, into metal. Okay. It's, like, lost wax casting technique. It's, like, how real jewelry is made. It's not just, like, jump rings and chains. I was graduating from my jump ring. There was a jeweler on site. And I would just kind of, like, stare at him through the window. And I would ask him questions, and he would, like, answer. But then he'd be like, you learn too fast. Like, still gatekeeping.
You would go and, like...
Yeah, because he could either be like, give me $5 and I'll do that for you. But, like, he would, like, answer some questions, and then I would, like, save my money. Yeah. And I would, like, go and buy, like, a wax file and a block of wax. And I would spend my weekend, like, filing away, like, at the hardest wax ever, because no one told me to buy the softer wax. This is what I mean. Like, no one...
No one's telling you the information.
No one told me.
So you're just trial and error.
You have no idea. And just knocking on doors, little doors in downtown Los Angeles, in a building, on a floor, on a thing. Like, hey, is Sylvia there? I heard maybe you can help. You know what I mean? And it's just, you're just interacting with strangers, asking for help.
Where do you get this confidence to go talk to random people?
It's not even a confidence. It's just like a desire to get it done. I mean, I like talking to people, obviously.
Only child.
I'm a talker. But it wasn't, it was still intimidating. It was still scary. The diamond industry specifically, like, part of my job at that store was like, go run this upstairs, go take this down there, So I'd be like running around a piece of jewelry, like picking up a diamond, taking a ring to a setter, and you just walk in and it's just all men. And they're like, what do you want? Like, you're the secretary.
Wow.
You know, and that's when I started. That's really, I think, actually, really that time was when I started dressing down. It was when I was, like, intentionally, like, covering up and wearing, like, I would wear, like, little boy blazers. Like, my boss would be like, you look like a little boy. I'm like, precisely.
Because you wanted to be taken seriously?
I wanted to be taken seriously. I wanted to be respected. I didn't want men commenting on how I looked in the elevator and if I lost weight or what my tattoo said. Trying to read the tattoo down my back.
Oh.
Like, that's the kind of stuff.
That was happening.
Yeah, and you're like, no, I'm here to work. Like, I'm really smart.
Yeah.
But like, all you see is, it's like,
What
okay,
I
let
look
me make this a little bit easier.
Yeah.
It doesn't stop.
It doesn't stop.
But it's a little bit like, I'm not showing up in heels with my tits out. It sends a little bit of a different message. And so that, I think, really is when I stopped wearing dresses. Just like really like over and I had to course correct over the years, but it was like an like having to like really be like protect, just like go in. And so lots of gatekeeping, lots of generational, like, people in the industry don't look like me. They don't come from, not Portland, Oregon, but there aren't black people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's generational.
Yeah.
It's like someone's dad was a diamond dealer, and so that they're a diamond dealer. Someone's dad was a jeweler, so then they're a jeweler. Someone's dad was a diamond setter, and it was all taught. And so it's not only like capital resources, not only money. It's like relationships. It's knowledge. Someone told their son, this is the best brand of wax to use.
Yeah. And they weren't willing to tell you that.
Imagine that.
If somebody just told you that.
No. And so it's like this inherited, like, it's in their blood. And so even to break in that.
Is a whole nother.
And it does go back to people having to like you and people having to respect you and having your reputation being, my reputation is all that I have.
Right.
And it's been built for the last 10, 11, 12, I lose, years. But of like, I'm doing what I said I'm going to do, and showing up and being good to people.
Being consistent, right?
Being consistent.
So you have this experience. You are experiencing a white male dominant environment.
I'm not even white though.
Not even white.
It's not even white. It's actually very specific because the building, the big building in downtown, it's the 550 building. It's called the International Jewelry Center.
Okay.
I once heard a fun fact that 5% of the world's diamonds are in that building.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
In just that building.
That's crazy.
It's not white male. It's international male. It's Lebanese, Armenian, Israeli, Indian, Persian. But they're all male dominant. It's all so patriarchal. Everyone's wives are either at home or they're like
secretaries
helping. But it's men running the, you know what I mean? And there's no like
no women in leadership, no women owning, no women at the front of it. Yeah.
So it's almost it's like almost like, I don't know what's worse, but like culturally it's just so patriarchal that it's not even white man. It's
just men.
It's in culture. It's really deep.
Wow.
Like it's like deeply ingrained.
Yeah, it's just what is considered quote unquote normal in that space.
Very normal.
Tell me about then you end up working with this luxury designer.
Yeah, so I did the downtown Diamond District, little uncut gemmy.
Yeah.
Little. Like not shady, but just like that energy of the wheeling and dealing and da-da-da. And I learned the basics of diamonds but like still very rough around the edges, that kind of gritty.
Yeah.
And I was poached.
You were poached.
I was poached. I was like outside, on a break. And this fine fashion jewelry designer approached me. He was like, what do you, I always see, what do you, I was like, eh. And I was making stuff. I had always made my own stuff on the side. And I had recently just kind of gotten like a few bigger commissions.
Oh, so you were actually getting paid.
This was like 2 years in.
Okay.
I was probably with them for like 2 or 3 years. And I had just made my first, like, I made how much money? You know what I mean? Like more money than I had made, but
prior, yeah.
Yeah. And so I had just kind of like unlocked that like knowing in myself, which
Do
is
you
like,
remember what that like what that was?
Yeah.
What was it?
It was like it was, I had...
Just on the one, you know, I'm just curious to know on that
like
that big commission. Yeah.
Like specifically the piece?
Yeah, the piece. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a piece for will.i.am.
What?
It was a piece for will.i.am for one of his music videos.
That's crazy.
So, because what it was is that I had always been making jewelry, and I would just kind of like, I was never trying to sell it on the side, but I would make it and I would post it. Yeah. I would like sit outside all day on my weekends, and I would make stuff, and then I would share it.
Where were you sharing it?
Instagram. This was all since the beginning of Instagram, you know?
Yeah.
And so then my friends around Los Angeles, or people just kind of knew me as like the jewelry girl. And so I would have like a stylist friend reach out and be like, hey, I have a shoot with so-and-so tomorrow. Can I pull... I have a shoot with Kendrick Lamar tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'm like, who's Kendrick Lamar? Swear to God. Swear to God. I'm like, yeah, okay, I guess. Ugh. And I'd like be like, here's some stuff. And I was just like, that's LA.
Yeah.
That's the magic.
And
that's the secret sauce.
That's what you went for, right?
That's the secret sauce of LA. You're just there, you hand the thing that you made was in a thing, you know?
Yeah.
All of a sudden you're at Diddy's house. What? How did that happen? I don't know. One morning you wake up, it's a normal Saturday morning. The next morning, you know, like you just don't.
It's just a part of the.
It just happens.
Yeah.
And that's the secret. That's why you're there.
Yeah.
So I had been doing, you know, stylists had been kind of, this was also like the stylist was becoming a thing, right? So a girlfriend of mine was like assisting styling with Will for some stuff. And she was like, oh, Matt, you know. And so I had made, I think the first piece that I did for them was he had just done a song with Britney Spears, the Scream and Shout. Yeah. And in the video, there's Scream and Shout rings.
Come on.
I made those.
What?
I made those in like 24 hours.
In 24 hours?
Yeah, it was the whole thing. They always needed things in 24 hours. So like I would always kill myself. I'd be like, okay, I'll make it happen.
I'll do it.
Man, those days. So that was like the beginning, you know, and then it would be like he had a thing, and then he needed a thing, and then he was like in like a very futuristic.
Yeah, I remember that.
And so he had like this like part that went down his head, and so he really wanted a gold stripe for his part. It was really cool.
Yeah.
Gold stripe with a half a carat diamond set in the back.
Come on.
So, but I also literally had like 4 or 5 days to make it. So like I had to engineer this thing, and then I had to like drill these holes, and then I had to like cut hairpins and like try and laser them in so that they would stick in his hair. So it was like, and I had like, you know, they're like, by the way, we need this Friday. I was like, okay. And it was like in that where I was like starting to get committed. It was like that I made gold and like I made, you know.
You're making these things.
And I was like, I remember my first check, and I was like, oh, this is the most money I've ever had in my bank account ever. And I remember like, it was actually really like a very magical moment for me, because I remember like any type of like envy or resentment or like frustration or jealousy that I ever had like towards people, like towards other kids who had money or help, like who didn't worry about paying their rent or how it like, I was like, oh, you can't buy this feeling. And I get goosebumps when I tell a story. I'm like, you can't buy that feeling.
You don't have to worry about if you could pay your rent, if money's going to be in the account.
Well, and I kind of always, as soon as that happened, I knew after that point that I was always going to be able to take care of myself.
Wow. That must have felt really nice.
I'm getting goosebumps telling you about it, because that was like an unlocking of like, I was able to like, be like, oh, trust fund, no trust fund, it's all good.
Because you knew you had something.
I have this thing that you can't take, and that you can't buy, that I did on my own, and it was, I don't have the words for it really, but it was this knowing, and it was like this, like, you know?
Yeah.
And so that was like the first time I had ever felt that. And it was like a sense of peace. It was a sense of confidence.
Yes.
It was a sense of like security and safety that I had like given myself. And that was the first time.
That was the first time. Okay, so now tell me about Ron.
So then Ron poached me. And I was kind of, and in that time, I was kind of like, well, am I going to go out on my own and do my own thing? Because obviously I'm popping. I'm just kidding. But I was like, okay, like I didn't need to take work. I also finally was not making decisions from a place of like scarcity.
Right. You weren't in survival mode anymore.
Right. I mean, I think that I existed within scarcity like mindset after that, but I wasn't in survival mode. And
what does that do to your creativity?
It opens everything up. When you're not trying to count and measure and pinch and this and that. And that was also, I mean, that was a beautiful thing working with Ron. There was a lot of beautiful things working with Ron, but one of, I was like rough around the edges. I was scrappy. And I love scrappy Maggie.
Yeah.
But like Ron taught me about luxury.
What was the difference?
No scarcity involved.
What do you mean?
Well, like one of the lessons that I kind of go back to, or one of like the moments, was like I remember, scrappy Maggie. I'm costing things and pricing. I'm price conscious when I'm designing, and how much does this cost, and how much does it cost the client, and does it look like, And he would do things like I remember first picking up one of his pieces, and it was like this heavy gold chain necklace, and it had this like toggle clasp, where like and the clasp goes to the back of your neck. And on the ends of the toggle, he had little diamonds set. And I saw it. And I was like, why would you put diamonds on the back of the necklace? No one sees those. My hair would be,
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, but she sees them when she picks up her necklace to put them on. What? We're throwing money away like that? Like that concept, that freedom I'd never felt that freedom.
Wow.
We're putting diamonds somewhere that no one's going to see them?
Yeah.
Like that's luxury. When you're not wearing your diamonds for everyone to see, they're like hidden and only you know that they're there. And that's the confidence, that's the knowing, that's the, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like that, it was moments like that I think were, and it just really like refined my eye and helped me see like imperfections and like, no, that's not supposed to look like that.
Wow.
So that was like really like a cool polishing.
Learning with
Ron. Yeah, learning with, someone who had been doing that for 20 years.
Yeah. But you would end up leaving from Ron's company probably 2 years later.
2 years later. It was like exactly 2 years.
And this time it was on your own accord.
Yeah, this time, again, it kind of goes back to that like knowing of like, so the first year that I was with him, it was amazing because I was like, 24?
Okay.
24, 25. And we would go to like luxury jewelry shows in Vegas. And it was just like this whole world. And I was like, whoa, I'm a baby. It was like, and I just saw like a whole other world.
Yeah, you'd never been
And I was
there,
learning about
it
this
existed.
I was learning about this whole other world. And so that was really cool. And then I kind of, he hired me to do sales, which, but I really dove into like product development.
Yeah.
And merchandising, marketing, product development, build the case, do the thing, drop it. Love product development. Because you're like solving a problem with design, right?
Right.
But in that second year, I just started to go to work every day. And I was just like, it sounds so dramatic, but the way that I describe it, it was like, a part of me felt like I was dying every day that I went to go build someone else's dream.
Because you recognized that it was you.
I knew that I owed it to myself, that I needed to try it out for myself. because I knew that I could do it. I
Wow.
knew that I could. And so to show up and to ignore that,
Yeah.
I was just like, it was like my spirit was just like breaking. And so he sat me, and he was just like, I got to clip your wings.
You gotta
go.
You gotta do it.
You got to go do your thing.
So you decide to go do your thing, and there's a couple of questions that I have to ask you about this. You spoke about your reputation. Is that why you decided to name your line Maggi Simpkins? What was the... No.
It's because I don't... No, it's because I'm terrible with names.
I love finding this out. It's like, it's not that deep.
No, it's like, I started my jewelry line. I'm like, what am I going to call it? I'm going to call it Magnolia. It's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And then it was just me making the stuff. There was no thought behind it other than I did not have an alternative.
Yeah, it was like, so did you feel like you were back in survival mode?
No, I just mean I didn't have an alternative name.
Oh, okay.
I just had nothing better.
Yeah.
Like nothing cool. I was like, well, I guess it's just Maggi Simpkins. And that was just me. And then I just did it.
You did it. Yeah.
That was it.
Where did you get the money to start?
I didn't really. I mean, so the way that I started was I quit.
Okay.
Had a little bit of savings. And I spent the first 3 months working on a collection. And I was making things out of brass.
Okay. Why brass?
Because diamonds and gold were scary. And very expensive. And because I had always made stuff out of brass.
Yeah.
And because I always kind of thought, because I still didn't really feel like because I was still very intimidated by the gold and diamond world. It was like one thing to work under someone in it, but to like,
you showing up.
yeah, no, it's still so, to break in again, like you say, like, it's like cost materials are,
Yeah.
So I thought I was going to do like a high-end fashion-y jewelry line.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, I know buyers now, and like, I've kind of played this game, and like, so I spent the first 3 months kind of like product developing this collection.
Yeah.
And this woman I knew at the time, we flew out to Dallas. She was repping a bunch of lines.
What's in Dallas, a show or?
Neiman Marcus.
Neiman Marcus, okay.
And she was like, well, why don't you just come with me and show them your stuff? I was like, okay. And I came with them and I showed them my stuff, and I think that like Kylie Jenner had worn one of my necklaces, and they're like, okay, that's fine, that's cool. Like, I know, so silly. It's LA.
You're a stylist?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so funny because it means nothing. It's like I wasn't rich because Kylie was wearing my necklace. It was literally just
what it was. Yeah.
like bragging points.
Yeah.
Like no one cares. And so I think they were kind of like, yeah, okay, we could try you out as drop ship. Which would mean like they would like show my earrings on the website, and then if a customer bought them, I would be responsible for actually shipping them, and then I would get paid.
Okay.
And I was like, okay. And I got back to Los Angeles and I never followed up.
Why not?
Because I was like, that's not going to get me out of bed in the morning. Like shipping a pair of brass earrings to a Neiman Marcus client like doesn't mean anything to me. Like there's something that's like not, it's just not going to get me out of bed.
Yeah.
Like, and so I was like, okay. I was like, quit my job, and I was like, because I had always had all this momentum around the jewelry and this and that, and I kind of, this first year I quit my job, and I was like, okay, world, I'm here.
This is you on Instagram?
No, just like calling out in the
life,
world.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm doing my stuff full time. I know I only had like 10% before, but now you got me, you know? It's like crickets.
Nothing.
Just like, what? This is weird. Always works. Like, what's going on?
No momentum.
It wasn't working.
So what did you do?
So then I developed a workshop.
Like teaching other people?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
To kind of just like shake things up. Just like get out, like, because I liked people. I like people.
Yeah,
I like talk.
You know, people around, you wanted to engage.
It's a human connection. I knew that I liked the human connection, and I knew I liked like connecting with the end wearer.
Yeah.
So like I did a couple trunk shows. I developed a couple workshops. The workshops were fun because I would like go around and do them at like places, like, and it was fun because it finally for the first time allowed me to step into like being the authority. Being the expert, where I'd always been like, I don't know, how do I do this? How do I do it? Can I see, you know?
Yeah.
And then you'd have like the CEO of PayPal or something tapping you and be like, am I doing this right? And you're like,
what?
yes, you are. Keep going. Great job.
That's an insane network.
So it was like, it allowed me to step into owning a little bit of that.
Yeah.
Okay. But it still was like,
Moving slow.
what's the thing? So it wasn't until about September or October of that year.
That year.
So I went on my own in January.
Okay.
Okay. First 3 months collection, Neiman Marcus, workshops.
Things, yeah.
Fall.
Okay. Fall hits. What happens?
A friend of mine who used to be a stylist, who used to pull jewelry from me,
Yep.
put it on Issa Rae when she was an awkward black girl.
Wow.
Okay?
Okay. Yeah.
Hit me up and he said, I want to propose to my girlfriend. Can you make me an engagement ring? I was like, oh, yeah, I can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can do that. And it was the first, you know, I've made them, but it was the first time I had ever done it on my own, not working under someone,
else,
not like
this is
having
your
someone's
original.
like company or shadow to hide behind. Hey, it's Maggie calling from so-and-so. By the way, I just want to get this, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, okay, I can do that. So I spend the next like 6 to 8 weeks. He was in the Bay. We were working remote. I was like, this is chill. You know what I mean? I like, you know, and so he comes into town. He comes to Los Angeles for a wedding, and we meet up, and I give him the ring. And like looking back, this is the best possible person this could have ever happened with, because he's like the biggest teddy bear, but he's like so animated and kind of dramatic and just like so, he just embodies all of his feelings. And so I get there, I give him the ring, he opens the box, and he's like, it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. He's like, it's like, wow. He's choking back. He's like tearing up. He's like, his whole, and again, he's like, his whole everything.
Yeah.
It was like this like tangible experience. What he was going through was, I was like witnessing this experience.
He couldn't hide it.
And I'm like, you know, I get goosebumps when I tell this story too. I always hated when I went out on my own, and I would be like part of these like things, and people would be like, "What's your why?" Like, I'm getting paid to be creative. Isn't that good enough? And I hated that question. And when he opened the box, and when he had his experience,
you knew.
That was my why.
Yeah.
I was like, that is why I make things. That will get me out of bed in the morning. This means something. This means something to me. That is my why. If I get to show up, and if I'm going to bring more stuff into the world, I want to make people feel like that.
Wow.
And it was just like, ding. And it was like the last little thing clicking into place, where it was like, alignment achieved. And I swear to God, that happened the next month. I got an email, I want an engagement ring. The next month, I got an email, I want an engagement ring. The next month, I got 2 emails. And I never, after I made that ring, I never wondered when my next job was going to come, if I was going to be able to pay my rent. Like, I have not ever wondered if more work is going to come. It was just...
Your work was its own referral.
It was its own referral. It's a piece that someone wears on their hand every day.
Yeah, it's the best marketing.
And if you're good at it, and if you're good to people, and if they care, you know, people are stoked, and it is. It's the best marketing because it's so funny. Like, I had someone break it down. They're like, well, people I don't sell. I don't sell anything. I'm not here to sell you anything. People have already sold. You're already sold. You're already sold by the time someone talks to your ear. Oh my God, I went to Maggie. I did this thing. I just show up. I'm like, what do you want to make? I'm not here to sell you anything. I don't want to sell you anything. Come back when you are sold.
Yeah.
Like, that's not my game. I'm just here to make stuff.
Wow.
And like have fun.
Yeah.
So it's been, and that was the end of 2015.
Wow. And then business just started to go.
It's just like turned into this thing that I never could have dreamed of.
Yeah.
Like yeah.
What is it? Do you have any help now?
I have like 2 really amazing. I have a girl in New York helping me part-time, and I have a girl in LA helping me part-time, both doing different things. And I'm really bad at asking for help. I am like not a CEO. Like, I'm not like a man. Like, I'm like, oh, I'll just do everything. Someone's like, I can't do that.
Like, no, I'm
like,
do this.
I don't know if I can trust you to do this really simple menial task. Like, it's like, I've let go of like the trust issues. I'm like, if it happens, it happens, whatever. But like, it's still just hard for me to delegate. And like, I'm still like, scaling has been hard. How do you scale a very personalized, very custom?
Right.
Handing off my production to someone. I'm like, wait, did you forget the little I'm not a micromanager, but like, did you do the thing?
You can't help it. You're very like passionate about your art.
So it's been hard, and like figuring out how to scale is hard. Figuring out how to grow it in a way that feels sustainable and authentic is hard. Figuring out how to exist outside of my engagement ring jewelry box that I've kind of put myself in is hard. It's hard to start over. Like, it's hard to like be the beginner at something else.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, now I'm like this like, and I say this like jokingly, but like master of my craft. But like, I'm supposed to like go learn how to design a sneaker. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna be bad again. I don't know if I have it in me to be bad forever again.
Like, yeah,
you know.
Like, I don't know if I want to.
I don't know if I want to be bad.
Yeah.
And
wow.
It's a good exercise, right? Like allowing yourself to be bad and stuff. It's very uncomfortable.
It might also inspire back to your core competency. Tell me about 2021. 2021, there's a lot of headlines go out.
Yeah.
Maggi Simpkins, $1 million ring, breaking records. Now imagine that work had to start way before that. So how did that come about, and $1 million ring? What's up?
I think it goes back to what I said before about people opening doors and people giving you opportunity, taking chances on you. And it's so funny because whether we're talking about Freda, whether we're talking about will.i.am, because let me be clear. What he did was intentional. He could have had any jeweler off the street. I was 24. He knew what he was doing. Wow. Like, do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, he was like, wow, this is dope, Mag, cool. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, he knew what he was doing, you know? And so that goes back to, like, 2021 was one of those moments where, like, it's funny because I've had, like, we don't always see ourselves the way that the world sees us. And, like, I still see myself as, like, Maggie from Portland, you know, or, like, Maggie, I'm taking the bus downtown to go to work, doing the thing, you know. And so, you know, 2020 was so interesting for obvious reasons. It was interesting. We were in lockdown. Yeah. It was quiet. It was so peaceful. There was nothing that we were... I was actually, like, in a really serious state of peace because there was nothing I was supposed to be doing. I, like, the hustler in me could, like, chill. Yep. And that was really, like, actually a really beautiful time for my spirit, I think. But summer 2020 hits, and all of a sudden, it's like the machine is like, black people, where are they? Where's the black this? Where's the elevate? Black voices, and all of a sudden you're like, wait, I'm just still grieving and more, you know? Yeah. You're like, I'm not press pitching.
I'm not trying to do this.
So, but business started. People were like, started paying attention. And so there was a little bit of growth there. You know what I mean? It has been steady growth. It's been steady growth. People have, it's been growing. But it was a different energy. Yeah. Opening up after the pandemic. Look, I was busy during the pandemic. People were bored. People were falling in love. Yeah. And people were like, well, this gives us something to look forward to. I was busy regardless. Yeah. The black thing was interesting because it put a different... You just had people being like, well, it's really important to us that a black designer makes our ring. It's like, all right. Sick. Yeah. Like, cool. Who cares if I'm talented? But, okay, cool, great. I'll take that. Yeah. I'll take that, you know. I'll say it. So on the heels of that, you know, there's a really brilliant and really incredible woman named Melanie Grant who's out of the UK. And I think she had just released a book. She did like a coffee table, fine, high art jewelry book.
She's like a journalist or?
She's
like
a journalist.
Jewelry expert? Okay.
She's like a journalist, like jewelry lover turned expert, like fascinated, but like did this really cool coffee table book interviewing like, I don't know, 250, like a lot of fine, high jewelry art designers. And she had been working with Sotheby's, I think, on around that. And she had just pitched to them, like, nobody knows who the black designers are. Let's do a selling exhibition. You want to do, like, you want to help the black community? Like, where are the dollars? Like, why? I want the collectors to be spending money with black artists. Right. So she pitched this exhibition. And I had met her maybe in 2020 because she had like she had found me on IG and she'd reached out very casually, like mentioned me in a Vogue UK article or something as an engagement, you know. And then she reached out to me top of 2021 and was like, I have something I want to talk to you about. Call me, you know. And I like call her on a Friday and I'm like,
you're not thinking, what are you thinking? You're just like casual catch up?
Okay. No, I mean, I hardly knew her, but I was like, this woman casually mentioned me in a Vogue UK article. What could she possibly want on a Friday afternoon? Yeah. Hello, yes, madame.
What's up?
You know, and she's like, darling, she's so fabulous. And she was telling me about it, and she was like, I've been working with Sotheby's, and I pitched them, I want to do a selling exhibition with 20 fine jewelry artists from all over the world, and I want you to be a part of it. Wow. And I'm like mid picking up dog in my backyard. Like I'm like on the phone with her, like cleaning up, watering my plants. Right. And I'm like, what? Me? Does she know what?
Did you have imposter syndrome?
I guess, but like I thought I had imposter syndrome when I was like, I guess it was just another level of imposter syndrome. Where it was like I thought I had imposter syndrome when I was like, didn't really have a jewelry line. Or when I was in Vegas at a jewelry show, or when I was like forced to be in Neiman Marcus Beverly Hills merchandising a case, but I couldn't even afford the valet. Like that's when I felt like I had imposter syndrome because I didn't feel like I deserved to be in those spaces. But I guess I guess it was. I guess it just was that, like, I've always been this, like, scrappy, independent, not backed jewelry designer, kind of doing my own thing.
Yeah.
No one was really paying attention. No one really gave a fuck.
And then here comes.
And then all of a sudden,
this phone call.
This woman in the UK wants me to be one of 20 black fine jewelry artists to exhibit at Sotheby's, like the oldest auction house.
Yeah.
That's what you think of my work?
Wow.
Whoa. Whoa.
That's pretty crazy.
So that, when you talk about transformative moments, it wasn't any, that was the moment. Right?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, maybe we're not looking at the same picture. Like, maybe I need to reevaluate what I'm
looking. How I see myself.
Yeah, like, what? So we're talking, and she's explaining, and she's like, yes, she's like, my whole goal in this is I really want people to know who the black artists are. I want, they have generations of collectors. I want these collectors to know who you guys are. And, my goal is 5 years from now, we have collectors spending money with you, and, one of you guys is doing $1 million sale. And I was like, oh, yeah, $1 million in sales. She was like, yeah. I was like, oh, yeah, $1 million in sales. And she was like, no, $1 million piece. And I was like, what's $1 million piece? Like, I couldn't even picture what $1 million piece was.
Yeah.
Again, I'm like,
yeah, totally.
I'm like, oh, yeah. $1 million piece. Yeah.
No big deal.
Casual. Okay, cool. All right, great. Cool. And because I had said to her, I was like, what's the parameters of this thing?
What's the brief?
What's the brief? Okay, so you want me to make 3 pieces? Great. If there ever was a time to spend a marketing budget, this would be it.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, tell me, what do you want me to make? Like, what's the arena? And she's like, well, there'll be pieces at $1,500. There'll be some at, 10 to 20. Probably some at, 30 to 40, maybe even something at 100. I'm like, okay, great. And it was very much like, whatever you feel comfortable with, whatever you feel safe with, I'm, like, we're just happy that you're going to participate. There was no rules.
Wow.
I was like, okay, cool, great. So I was like, whatever, worst case scenario, I make something that's more on the inexpensive side, and I just use my money. And this is, I've never spent money on marketing, I had never spent money on marketing, PR, whatever. And I was like, okay, if there's ever a time to invest in, this is now. Okay, great. So I was like, all right, let me figure it out. So that afternoon, this is a Friday, that afternoon, I drive downtown. And like, I have to say, in our industry, it's like people will buy gems and they'll, you know what I mean? It was very common for me to have like some guy on the street to be like, hey, I have like a parcel full of rubies in my safe. It's been there for 12 years. Like, can you just like make something and try and sell them? And I was like, that's not how my business model works. I'm not just going to make, like, no.
Yeah, no, I'm not doing it.
But I was kind of like, all right, I'm obviously going to invest whatever I can into these pieces, but let me see what else I can get my hands on, right? So I go downtown. I have errands to run. I bop into one of my diamond dealer's offices, and I'm meeting with him. I think I'm meeting about something else. And I was like, okay, I also have to tell you, I got a really exciting call. I can't really tell you what it is. And I was like, but I have an opportunity to show these pieces at a major auction house. And I was just said, if you have anything laying around that you like don't care if I work with, I'm just putting it out there.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, what do you want? I was like, what do you got? Like, what do you got?
Yeah.
And he's like going through his box full of diamonds, and he's like, yeah, I have this, he's like, I have this 12 carats. He like throws this thing at me, and he's like, I have this 12 carat something, blah, blah. He's like, this one's like 250,000. I was like, okay. What else you got? And he like throws this other thing. He was like, yeah, this one, blah, blah, this one. And I was like, these are stunning. These are really great. But something like the clarity was too low. I was like, I'm like, these are beautiful, but like, think collector.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, I have something for you. And I was like, what? And he like throws this metal box at me.
Here.
Yeah, he was like, and he was like, oh yeah, it's like a 2 villa internally flawless pink diamond. He's like, this one's like, and I was like, what? What? Okay, great.
Ooh.
Glad to know you've got stuff.
You don't take it.
No, I was just like, I have to process. I don't know what I'm going to make.
Yeah.
I was like, cool. Glad to know. Mm-hmm. Thank you. I'll be back. And I'm like driving home, and I'm like, this man just offered me a diamond to make the $1 million piece. What?
Yeah.
And so I call Melanie, and I'm like, actually, I WhatsApped her because I was too scared to call her, and she's in the UK, and I like send her a text, and so I sat with it all weekend, and I like talked to her on like Sunday or Monday, and I was like, hey Mel, do you remember that $1 million piece that you mentioned? She's like, yeah. And I was like, I think I have the opportunity to make it. She's like, well, I think you have to do it.
Oh, wow. And now imagine, since you told her, it was kind of like, you know, once you tell someone something, they kind of get hooked on it.
Well, it was the magic in that Friday afternoon where she had called me and she had presented this opportunity. And I was like, excuse me? And then I had gone downtown, and the people that I work with, the relationships that I have built,
right.
And you talk about like showing up and be, you know, they're like, yeah, I got you. Wow. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
What? I'm capable of what? Like, I didn't even believe it.
Yeah.
And then when people found out when people found out I was doing it, they're like, she's doing what? Like, people in the industry were like, how did you do that? And I'm like, I don't really know, to be honest with you. But Melanie planted the seed.
Yeah. You just acted on it.
And it was just, yeah. So it was just like between her and my diamond, like they just both were like, yeah, great. Like they just opened these doors. They, you know, and I was just like, I guess I have to do it.
How long did it take you from then on to?
I had like 2 months.
Yeah, 2 months.
To do that. Yeah, it was like, I think it was like 2 months, maybe a little bit less.
Wow. And were you doing other things?
I was doing, yeah, I was running a whole custom business. And I made 3 pieces total for the show.
Yeah.
And so I was making, it was like, for whatever reason, the $1 Million ring and the peacock ring were like technically the most complicated because they were cast in like 5 separate pieces. And I had to like, I cast those pieces so many times. So like, it was like, so it almost killed me. But it was like I was so hell-bent on everything being as perfect as possible.
Yeah. What was the resolution of that moment?
The resolution of that moment was it was the show in September and walking in that room and finally feeling like I deserved to be there.
Wow.
I wasn't even conscious of it until afterwards.
You're kind of in shock. Well, you probably were absolutely in shock.
It was, I wasn't aware of it. It was like walking in that room and having that show, and it was like a big party. It was like a celebration because it wasn't just mine.
No, right.
It was a collective thing, but like what I was going through, I think everyone else was kind of going through that. It's in some form.
Yeah.
And so it was like this collective, like, we deserve to be here.
Was that your first time being around that many designers of color, Black designers?
Designers of color. Yeah. I'm independent. I'm like myself. Wow. You know, I'm not like industry, you know, and it was this, for me, that moment, that night represented like the decade of scrappiness and the decade of not knowing where I was going, but putting one foot in front of the other. And all the times I called my mom and I was like, what am I doing? And all the times I took the bus down on the, you know, all of it was just like, yeah, this is why.
This is your moment.
This was my line. This is what I'd like. Because you don't, in those times, like, you don't know what you're working towards exactly, because you don't know that it's ever gonna happen. You just put one foot in front of the other.
Right.
And so to finally arrive at a place that feels like it actually, like you made it, and that you can finally like stop worrying about if you're ever gonna make it. Yeah. And it's so silly because it's like, it doesn't, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't mean anything. But it's like it's like, again, what it kind of unlocks in you. It was like the moment that I made my first whatever, you know what I mean?
It's another level of belief.
It's another level of belief in self.
Right? Like it just expands. Like you just continue to expand.
I couldn't have bought it. Like you can't buy that feeling. You can only work an entire decade for it.
And the moment comes.
Yeah.
You never know when.
And it was, you never know when. And like, that's what it was, where it was like, I've arrived at feeling like, and then since then, I think the best gift was just not, it was like I ended up going to like the GEM Awards a year later. And it was so funny because I was like, I had so much fun. And the next day I was like, I didn't realize it at the time. I was just having fun and I felt like I was with peers and friends. And the next day I was like, I didn't ever once feel like I didn't deserve to be there.
Wow. What an incredible feeling.
Yeah.
What happened to your business after that?
I mean, it's so much. The thing that's like so tricky, you know, and I'm like, just to be so real, it's like, I was exhausted. I had met like full burnout mode activated.
Yeah.
Like it's so funny because there's like this celebration going on and there's this like Maggi Simpkins, and I'm just like,
hey, I need to go take a break.
I needed a nap, like constantly. And so I look back on that time like so grateful, and I look back at that time being like, yeah, what would have happened if I had like a whole like thing locked and loaded to like launch, and like that would have been so cool. But like, I didn't have.
You didn't have the capacity to go do
I didn't have the capacity to do anything, you know? And so I think, you know, it's been like a great lesson. Like, I just don't really need anything. Like, I just like feel really free of like needing to prove anything to myself or anyone else anymore. Like, I just like don't need. I did it. It's done. Yeah. I don't need anything. It's like everything else is for fun.
Wow.
Everything else feels good. Everything else is curiosity. Everything else is creativity. Yeah. Everything else is trying something new that I haven't done, or like making things more efficient, or giving someone else an opportunity, you know?
I love that.
But it's like, I don't need.
You don't need that stuff.
What do I need?
Yeah.
To be you know, like, for what?
Yeah. So I was going to ask you, I wanted to ask you, and this is my final question.
Okay.
Tell me, as you think back through these periods and where you've come from, and the information you didn't have, and not observing someone that's a creative making a living out of this.
Yeah.
Right? And you think to where you've been able to get to now, and you got so much more in front of you and so much more to figure out. But there's someone else that's observing you.
Yeah.
There's a younger person observing you, maybe an older person observing you.
Yeah.
What advice would you give them as they're trying to find their identity as a creative, and if that's actually the path that they should go on?
Well, if that's the path they should go on would probably depend on their tolerance for discomfort. Because there's nothing comfortable about my journey. There's nothing comfortable about like being creative or like forging your own path. Like if you want comfort, go work at sales. Probably not sales, but like if you want comfort, just go do something else. You know what I mean? I think it just takes a lot of time of like sitting with yourself and being really real with yourself. And to like really create for yourself and not for other people. Like, because at the end of the day, it's like, that's what, it's like, I make things because it feels good to make things. Not because I actually want accolades for making things or because I want other people to think it's cool. You know what I mean? Like, I have to like the lifestyle that comes along with spending my time making stuff and tinkering and experimenting and failing and then having to figure it out again. And, you know, I did not have a traditional education in any of this. I really learned as I went along, and I asked a lot of questions to a lot of different people. I think that for me, learning hands-on was the way that I had to do it. I had to see the way that Ron ran his business. I had to see the way that the Freda ran her business. I had to see the way that the family owned it, you know?
Yeah.
And I was like, yes, a little bit of that, a little bit of that, definitely not. A little bit of that, you know, like what, because it's not entrepreneurship, creativity, it's not one size fits all. You really have to like take, you know, and I think that more than just like being a creative and like designing a thing, it's like I'm trying to design my life.
Wow.
Like I'm intentional about how my days look. Like I don't wake up to an alarm clock. I don't, you know what I mean? Like there's things that are important to me. Waking up slowly every morning is important to me.
Important to you, yeah.
Walking my dog every morning and having a cup of coffee. That's how I like to. I'm not running out of the house. I'm not in a meeting by 9. I'm just not doing that.
Yeah.
That's not how I'm structuring my days,
Wow.
you know? And so I think that it's also kind of getting clear about like the things that feed you.
Yeah.
Recognize, like, and this is what I mean by spending time quiet with yourself. It's like, what feeds you? Do that. And I think it's like really saying yes to the things that, I mean, I got here by saying yes to the things that feel good and by saying no to the things that didn't feel good.